Welcome back. If it's 1 o'clock on a Friday, it means it's TuckerAllen Live on Facebook. And again, here we are today. I'm Scott Trout. I'll be the moderator for today's TuckerAllen Live. And today we look for topics, and we were joking off camera. And the point is, let's find a topic that Scott knows nothing about, which is pretty much everything when it comes to wills and trusts. And today we're going to talk about asset protection trusts. So we're going to talk about that, but if you have questions along the way in these short 10 to 15 minutes, put those in the comment section. I'll be watching as we go along. So today we're joined again by Teresa Yao of TuckerAllen. Welcome.
Hi, thanks, Scott.
Happy Friday, and let's talk asset protection trusts. I have no idea what that is. I told you that off camera. So let's let everyone else know who's joining us. What is that?
Yeah, so when we talk about asset protection trusts, normally we're talking about it in the context of long-term care planning, or more specifically Medicaid. And essentially, asset protection trusts are a form of irrevocable trusts, and its main benefit is so that if you think that long-term care will be kind of coming down the road for you, then asset protection trusts can be really helpful in terms of preserving assets for your loved ones.
So is it something that you can join together in a will trust strategy that you make and you create an asset protection trust?
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to think of it as this extra tool in your estate planning toolkit. So normally when people come in, they create the revocable trust, and we do things in packages. So like the revocable trust, their pour over wills, powers of attorney, all that good stuff. But in addition, we add in an irrevocable trust for the purpose of asset protection.
So let's talk about parameters, talk about special considerations, things that people may be thinking, okay, I get it. I want to talk a little bit more in a minute about particular uses and why do people use them, but what parameters and considerations should they have?
Yeah, I think the number one consideration is just, do you think long-term care is a concern for you? And so a lot of times younger clients that come in, maybe they're like, not right now, I don't need to add that to my estate plan yet. And maybe older clients are it's more on the forefront of their mind, and so they are more seriously consider adding it to their toolkit. So that's the first consideration. How many years do you have left before you think you need to get on long-term care? Because when we're talking about Medicaid, they have that 5-year look-back rule, right? So when you create an asset protection trust, in an ideal world, you would have 5 years before you need to access long-term care. Another parameter to consider is just to say, with an irrevocable trust, like the asset protection trust, you cannot be the trustee of your own asset protection trust. Mainly because if you're the trustee, you still have access to those assets technically, and then Medicaid will be like, oh no, you're not, we can still reach into that trust.
Got it. So, we have someone watching and they're thinking, okay, when is the right time for me? And I know you mentioned young may not be thinking about it, old may be thinking about it. Kind of, when is it that someone who's watching or has questions thinking, should I be thinking about this? When is the right time for me?
Yeah, so like I said, normally it's more of a serious consideration for older clients that come in, but really there really isn't too early to add it to your toolkit. So if you create an asset protection trust, it's essentially you have an irrevocable trust and you have a revocable trust. I think of the revocable trust like the basket and the irrevocable one like a lockbox. And you get to decide how you want to use the two, right? With the basket one, the benefit of it is it's avoiding probate. So any assets you title with the revocable trust, it's avoiding probate. But in terms of protecting them from creditors, from Medicaid, kind of those threats down the road, the revocable one is not enough to do that. And the irrevocable lockbox is kind of the tool that you'd want to use for those assets you want to protect.
Okay, so let me make sure, because it does get confusing, and we've always used these words. So let's make it real clear for someone. The advantage, meaning that why, when we think about long-term care, we talk about not probate, why would they go this route specifically on an asset protection? The easiest way, why would I bother doing that?
Yeah, so the whole point of creating an asset protection trust, it's in the name, is to protect those assets from lien holders or creditors down the road. So for example, when we're talking about Medicaid, you're thinking, oh, well, if I get onto Medicaid, technically Medicaid can put a lien on your house, for example. And after you pass away, Medicaid can say, hey, I'm going to recoup the care that we provided from your estate. So anything that was in your name at the time that you got onto Medicaid, Medicaid can put a lien on those assets. By creating an irrevocable asset protection trust, if you put something in there and you can wait those 5 years before needing long-term care, because you are not the trustee of your asset protection trust, you don't have access to those assets, so Medicaid can't get after those assets.
I get it. Okay. So basically, I want to make sure that my money goes to my kids or to the people I want it to go, not necessarily for me to spend every penny and every dime on my long-term care. And so the way to do it is to put this in this asset protection trust 5 years in advance. That's the waiting period, right?
Yeah, at least 5 years, which is why it's never too early, but it's maybe more of a consideration when long-term care is more imminent.
I wasn't really avoiding it, but I'm pretty good at procrastinating. I needed a trust. When I found TuckerAllen, all our questions were answered, all of our fears allayed.
You want your wishes in place, so there's no guessing, no stress on the children.
Basically, they talk about what you need, what's important to you. It was more conversational, really very simple.
So if we think about the cons, the negatives, if if I put it into a asset protection trust right now, I'm almost 53, and let's just say I don't need long-term care for another, let's just say 20 years. Is there a con for me putting it in there right now?
Well, so the main reason some people feel hesitant to put assets in the irrevocable trust is because you're essentially giving up ownership and management of that asset when you put it into this lockbox, right? You're appointing somebody you trust to serve as trustee of that lockbox of the irrevocable trust. And when you put something in there, you intend it to stay in there. Yes, you can still get that asset out of the lockbox, but it's going to require a lot more work. You need all the beneficiaries and all the trustees to sign off on it in order for you to get it back. And once you get it back, if you put it back in, that restarts the 5-year clock.
I see.
So it's kind of like a commitment saying, hey, this asset that I have, I'm pretty sure I won't need it anymore. And the only reason I want to keep it is to give it to my kids. Those are the assets that you want to put into the lockbox.
Are there limits on how much can be put into that account or that asset protection trust?
No.
Okay, so you can put as much as you want in there to help you qualify for aid towards your care, right?
Yeah, and a common thing to put into the irrevocable trust is a home, because for a lot of people, the home is one of the biggest ticket items that they have in their estate. And then so when you put a home in there, there's a provision in the irrevocable trust that we create, at least, saying, hey, if this asset protection trust holds any real estate, the grantor, the person that actually put it into the trust, has the priority, has all the rights to continue living there. So you're not really changing anything by putting the house in there. You're just protecting it from Medicaid down the road.
So it sounds like a great opportunity to, meet with your financial planner, meet with your stockbroker, and then meet with your attorney to kind of put together a nice strategy of what assets should be placed in there to prevent them from being either considered or, maybe you're going to use some assets to a point, and then that way, when your long-term care kicks in, and that way you can apply for aid. And it just seems like a wonderful opportunity to get some professionals together to really think about a good strategy like this, right?
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
So how do you use, I know we probably talked about it, I want to make sure we covered it, the revocable trust and this asset protection trust, that they work together, meaning there's someone watching now that says, okay, last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I went and had a will and a trust taken care of. I've got a revocable living trust, whatever it is. Now, how do I get these to work together in concert?
So the benefit of just adding an irrevocable trust, as long as you're not updating any other documents, it really is just creating an extra trust to add to your estate planning binder. And how it works is, the reason I keep using the toolkit analogy is because these are for you to decide how to use, right? We don't recommend our clients to put everything into the irrevocable trust. You get to decide what you're comfortable with setting aside in the lockbox, and what you feel comfortable with holding on to, and that still remains in your name. Our general rule of thumb in terms of how to use those two when you have both in your toolkit is to say, hey, anything that you need to sustain your quality of life, standard of living, those assets, just keep that in the revocable trust so that you can continue using it. You have that discretion, manage those assets for yourself. But anything else more than that, why not put it into the irrevocable trust?
And that seems to align perfectly with where I'd said, hey, let's meet with your financial planner or meet with your stockbroker, and let's determine, okay, here's what I need to live on. And here's what I know. And we project that out. We have a nice budget and, absent crazy expenses. But we put this extra money here so that we know that by X date, if we anticipate needing care, that's why I think it's wonderful to have those professionals together to make those really good projections for people, because it does get a little complicated when you start projecting out and making sure you're putting enough in. But I get it. I had a grandmother who went through and she didn't do this. And so she spent every dime that she had on long-term care. And we had that conversation. It was too late. And, you couldn't dump it in. And it was, she wanted, things to go to her kids, and I got it. But, that's the kind of information, if we can break it down like you did today, it becomes really easy to understand why there's an advantage. Now, I guess when we mentioned the trustee, you can't be the trustee of your own asset protection trust. Can it be a spouse? What is typically do you see?
Normally, we don't like to have the spouse either, just because with Medicaid, a lot of times what the spouse has, you have, and in terms of counting assets. But a lot of times, most people who end up creating asset protection trust, it's because they have kids. And a lot of times the adult children are the trustees.
I get it. So obviously that's something you do at TuckerAllen, right? And in addition, and you offered the discussion and the strategy about asset protection trust. So Teresa, thanks for joining today on TuckerAllen Live on Facebook. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, we'll continue to tune in every Friday. Remember, mark your calendar, 1:00 on Fridays. We'll be just taking a few minutes of your time to give you some things and tidbits of information just like this. But the best advice, this isn't legal advice. We want you to come schedule a consultation. You can go to the website, TuckerAllen.com. And many people don't know, you can have that consult. You can pretty much do everything from the comfort of your home by scheduling that consult right there and having a consult with an attorney at TuckerAllen just from where you are via Zoom, FaceTime, whatever device you use, WebEx, whatever it may be. So check out the resources on TuckerAllen.com, schedule your appointment, and they'll be happy to meet with you and talk to you about the asset protection trust and how it can benefit you. So until next Friday, have a great weekend.